Ooh, sweet sunshine, daddy daycare. It's episode 53, Average Bros Fantasy Football Podcast. It's week 14 coming up here. What does week 14 mean? Well, I'll tell you. It means playoffs. I wish I could have that clipped. But listen, I'm burping a lot. Those monsters get me. This important week. I know I say that almost every week, but this is an important waiver wire episode. We're going to give you the know-how to win your league.
Win or go home, baby.
Yeah, this is for all the marbles, as they would say in the country of marbles. We're here for you. Me and Tyler. No Anthony today. He said something about he had like a rash in between his legs or something. I don't know. He had to go to the doctor, but we're here for you.
It's running rampant.
It is running rampant. We got this waiver wire episode for you. If you didn't already, subscribe to us on YouTube.
Just click it.
Just follow us on Instagram at Average Bros Fantasy Football. All
Disney Plus and click it.
Even if you're listening to this audio-wise, I always put the links to all of our social medias down below. So go ahead, check that out. It's always in the description. Those links are there. So let's get to it. Let's do this.
Let's talk about how many playoffs did you make in your leagues?
I'm in 3. That's not bad.
3 out of how many?
3 out of like 5.
3 out of 5. It's not bad. 60%.
No, I was in 7 leagues actually.
3 out of 7. That's bad. That's pretty bad.
I barely missed it in ours. That's what I didn't want to say.
You had some tough breaks in ours. You had injuries.
Well, in the FFPC league, it's kind of like a shorter year, and we had Tyreek Hill. I think we went Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, and then so we didn't have him for the first like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, man. That one was rough. And then one of my leagues, it doesn't even make sense if you really look at my team. I picked up all these good players. I have really good. Everything seems to be good, but then it's just week after week. I put up like no points. Mike Evans, DJ Chark. I had Tevin Coleman, who was doing good. Saquon Barkley, Chris Carson, Evan Ingram. You know.
Yeah,
it's like none of those guys are really bad. I was going back and forth on different quarterbacks, but it's like I just I don't know, man. Just putting up nothing. So
yeah,
3 out of 7. What about you?
4 out of 5. We missed me and Anthony. We do an FFP team every year. We barely missed. Kind of salty. I was just telling you up there, but we barely missed the playoffs. And that one, if you win, you win $1,500. And if we would have made the playoffs, we would have smacked. Only 4 teams make the playoffs in that one. We would have smacked whoever was in there. Yeah. We would have had the high score back to back. And then the thing with the FFPC is that once you get past into these like weeks 14, 15, 16, it's kind of a free for all for whoever's in there. It's you're not really playing against anybody. It's whoever scores the most total points in that 3-week stretch wins. It's like a massive tournament. You win $250,000 for that one. So,
which would be nice. It really would.
One day. Yeah.
Well, that being said, let's get into it. Let's talk about some quarterbacks. First off, does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
Let me start on that. All right. So let's begin to
pad the wire.
Pad the wire, baby. Waiver wire. Let's go. What do you got? Quarterbacks.
Like I said, I feel like when we talk about quarterbacks, it's always about like streaming quarterbacks. If you don't already have like a if you have like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, like I feel like you're playing these guys kind of set it and forget it. But I mean, I'm in a couple leagues where I'm pretty much like streaming quarterbacks on a week-to-week basis, just kind of playing whoever has the better matchups because I don't have one of these like top-tier elite type of quarterbacks. But we kind of touched on him a couple weeks ago, when he was playing Miami. But Baker Mayfield, the Bake Show, he came out. He had a monster game against Miami. If you're listening to the matchups this last week, we kind of told you, fade Baker this week. It's a tough matchup in Pittsburgh, especially after the whole Miles Sanders, Mason Rudolph incident too. I wasn't too high on him this game. But Baker Mayfield's 38% available. So if you need a streaming quarterback, I actually, streamed him a couple weeks against Miami, and I kind of just like kept him on my bench this last week. But I'm gonna dial him up, this week and even next week if I make it into the second round of the playoffs. But the next two games, he's home against Cincinnati, so you're not really scared about that pass defense. And then week 15 at Arizona. I mean, we just saw Jared Goff and the Rams offense come alive against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals is kind of like a get-right game for anybody. Their pass defense is just terrible. So these next two games for Baker Mayfield are green-rated matchups. When we say green-rated matchups, those are like the money matchups. Those are the best, matchups for that position or that player. So, yeah, I like Baker Mayfield these next 2 weeks. If you can, just like I said, if you're streaming quarterbacks, maybe if you're in a double quarterback league and maybe you have a Lamar Jackson or a Mahomes already and you're kind of like streaming a second quarterback or a super flex type of league. Yeah, I like Baker Mayfield a lot these next 2 weeks going forward.
I like it. I actually do like Ryan Fitzpatrick going against the Jets. How does that make you feel?
I mean, yeah, Fitzmagic, he's, kind of
5 touchdowns in the last 2 games.
I mean, he kind of does what he does. I mean, he's at the Jets this week and at Giants and then home against Cincinnati, so you're not scared about any of those games right there. I mean, we're throwing the ball more than anybody. I think I saw it, he's thrown the ball 33-plus times, and 7 straight games he's thrown the ball 33 or more times.
He might be even a guy, just because his matchups are pretty decent the whole way through the playoffs. Maybe you pick up Ryan Fitzpatrick if you have like a Lamar Jackson or something.
Yeah.
Just in case, I don't know, as a backup.
Just in case, cover your ass, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like he's really available.
I mean, one thing I can say with Fitzmagic is the Dolphins' defense is terrible. So, I mean, there's always going to be games where they have to throw the ball, and then the Miami's running game is non-existent. They have no running game. So if they're going to move the ball at all, it's through the air. And we've kind of seen the emergence of Devontae Parker. We'll touch on that when we get to the receivers-wise. But, yeah, I'm not mad at Fitz. He's a guy who I think, these are some juicy matchups right here. I'm a little nervous for the one at the Jets because I think, playing a division game on the road, it's kind of tough. But at Giants and then home against Cincinnati, I'm not mad against that at all. What about my boy Tannehill over here? He just
I like it.
5-1 since becoming the starting quarterback. I guess you would say it was his first bad game. I think he only had 16.8 points or something like that in a standard 4-point passing touchdown game. But 78% available. And one thing for Ryan Tannehill right here, he has the easiest remaining schedule for quarterbacks going forward. The next 2 games are green-rated matchups. He's at Oakland, and then he's home against Houston. Week 16, he's home against the Saints, so that one's not as great. But these next 2 matchups at Oakland and then home against Houston, you can throw on both of these teams here. Tannehill obviously offering you a little bit on the ground too. I think he's had 30 or 40 or more rushing yards in 4 of those 5 games that he's played. So getting it done on the ground as well. I mean, how are you feeling about Tannehill?
I like that. He's got good options. A.J. Brown, different receivers, big guys that are able to just come down with the ball. Yeah, I mean, I like it. What's his week 16?
They're home against the Saints.
Okay, so that's the only.
That's kind of a little rough one, yeah.
But, I mean, if you're really streaming, maybe pick up Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ryan Tannehill, double Ryan it up.
Yeah.
And then just throw Fitzpatrick maybe in that week 16. But yeah, I'm not mad at that. It's hard for me on these quarterback streams because most of my leagues I drafted Lamar Jackson, so that I'm not really streaming that much. But yeah.
Yeah,
I like
There's
it.
some numbers on Tannehill. I think it was with Mariota, they were averaging 16 points as an offense. With Tannehill, they're averaging 31 points as an offense. 5-1 as a starter over there. And then the red zone efficiency is really good. When they get in the red zone, they're scoring touchdowns. So that's, you like seeing that. So yeah, I'm not mad at Tannehill. I think, if you're, like I said, if you don't have one of these top tier elite quarterbacks, maybe you're trying to just stream, down the stretch. I think Tannehill's a guy you could pick up and you could throw in your lineup and you wouldn't be too mad at what he's going to get you.
Right. How do you feel about Sam Darnold against Miami?
I mean, I wasn't big on Sam Darnold last week, and I think I touched on it in the matchups. I felt that it was a trap game, playing in Cincinnati against the Bengals. He was coming off a monster game, too.
Right.
I just didn't feel comfortable about it because it's still Sam Darnold at the end of the day. But, I mean, Sam Darnold, 70% available. He's home against Miami, and Miami's – I'm a Dolphins fan, so they're just not very good. So, I mean, if you're going to play Sam Darnold, he'd probably be like a top 10 play from this week actually, because, he's home against the Dolphins, and they're bad. But after that, weeks 15 and week 16, he's at Baltimore. You don't like that. That sounds gross. And then week 16, home against Pittsburgh. That sounds pretty gross too. Steelers defense is pretty good. You know about that.
Right.
So if I'm playing Sam Darnold, it'd be this week, and then that's it. Man, and that's it this week. But I do think he has a good matchup this week.
Okay, and then how do you feel? How owned is Jacoby Brissett?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'd be playing Jacoby Brissett. I'd play one of these other guys. Like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield.
Against Tampa Bay secondary.
It just depends, I guess, if T.Y. would come back. But
I think I'm with you too. It's just like a name I wanted to shout out there. But I think you're right. If T.Y. Hilton's in there, it just ups the potential.
Yeah. What about the return of Minshew Mania?
That's pretty wild.
He's 90% available.
What does he play? Oakland?
He's this week they're at home against the Chargers.
Okay. Yeah. It's just a little bit nerve-wracking, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I like these other guys that we were talking about a little bit better, so it's just that's how I feel.
Yeah, this week at home against the Chargers, not the greatest matchup, but one thing I can say about Minshew Mania is weeks 15 and 16, 2 green-rated matchups. Week 15 at Oakland, that's a money matchup, and then week 16 at Atlanta, that's another money matchup right there. So could be a guy who, like I said, maybe you're in a double quarterback league and maybe you pick him up, or maybe you're streaming quarterbacks. Maybe you stream a Baker. Maybe you have Sam Darnold this week. Good matchup. But weeks 15, 16, you're not playing Sam Darnold. Maybe you grab a Minshew. Weeks 15, week 16, those are better matchups right there for a Minshew. So yeah, could be a guy like that. Or like I said, just kind of like puzzle piece these streaming quarterbacks together for their matchups. So yeah, but some good matchups for Minshew and the Jaguars weeks 15 and 16. The matchups for the receivers in weeks 15 and 16 are juicy as well. DJ Chark and D.D. Westbrook. So that's obviously going to help Minshew as well in those last 2 weeks of the season. But
I like it. Little mustache action.
What about like a Jared Goff?
Did you see? I seen a tweet, and it was like, imagine paying Nick Foles $88 million just to bench him for your 6th round draft pick.
Seriously, right?
Can you imagine, dude? That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Jared Goff, after coming off a monster game against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable throwing him in there, or you gonna drop him?
He's kind of dead to me a little bit, to be honest. What did we Rams get this week? Seattle. Yeah.
They're home against Seattle. You can throw on Seattle.
Yeah, you can throw on Seattle, but I just think that I feel like Seattle. I feel like this division plays pretty tight.
Yeah.
I don't know. Seattle's just been pretty decent. I could just see them being in a negative game script and them trying to catch up and Jared Goff making some mistakes. I feel like Jared Goff just doesn't play well from behind. He's really good when they get the lead at the beginning. He just kind of dominates.
Yeah.
But he's not really he's not really a quarterback that can come back. He's not like a Tom Brady 28-3 fucking third quarter. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't feel good about it. Even though he had this big week, I don't feel very good about it this week.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. I streamed Goff this last week just because the matchup was juicy. He's pretty much like these guys. He's a matchup-based quarterback. So
yeah,
it's kind of. I think what we're trying to say is when you find a juicy matchup, even if the quarterback hasn't been playing that well all year, sometimes these matchups are just too good to pass up on. Goff obviously has all those weapons. Think about the matchup was juicy against the Cardinals.
It's like tight ends against Arizona. Like, okay, O.J. Howard had a decent week that week.
Yeah,
but are you going to play him the next week? No.
You probably did because you drank the Kool-Aid, but then
no, I
died.
Didn't. But if you're people probably did, but but we learned from that you shouldn't do that. It's just matchup based. Yeah. So yeah, no Jared Goff for me.
Yeah, it's home versus Seattle. That's not too bad. But then at Dallas week 15 and at San Francisco week 16, that's just gross. So yeah, I think we're going to see the Jared Goff we've seen all year these last couple weeks down the stretch. So yeah, I'd be fading him.
I'm right there with you. Let's talk about running backs.
Running backs, baby.
Running backs. That's you know what? You know what's cool about running backs? Everything. Let's pad the wire for some running backs here. Who is your number one running back?
This is tough because I have Dalvin Cook in a couple leagues. So when he got hurt on Monday night, I was freaking out because the matchup next week is juicy against the Lions. They're home against the Lions, and the Lions are a bottom 2, bottom 3 defense when it comes to defending the run. So Dalvin Cook should have a monster game. But when he went down, I was kind of nervous. But Alexander Mattison, he's 82% available. Dalvin Cook came out and said he's going to be okay, but when they asked him, they were like, "Hey, what happened with your shoulder?" And he's like, "Oh, it's kind of the same thing from the Broncos game." So it's like, I didn't even know he had a shoulder injury in the Broncos game. So now he's saying in the Broncos game he hurt his shoulder. This game he hurt his shoulder.
I feel like these guys are always injured. We just don't know about it.
Yeah. So Alexander Madison, he's 82% available. He'd be one of my top guys to go out there and grab, because if anything was to happen to Dalvin Cook, I mean, their playoff schedule is the easiest for running backs, and we've seen the Minnesota Vikings offense and how they just kind of their offense runs through the running back. 3 straight green rated matchups, weeks 14, 15, 16. So if Dalvin Cook was to miss any type of games, Madison would be on a team, would be leading people to the championship if possible. So yeah, if he's out there, 82% available, I'd definitely go grab him. If you have Dalvin Cook, you 1000% need to go grab him. He would be my number one waiver priority if I have Dalvin Cook. Even if I don't have Dalvin Cook, here's a guy I'm still trying to go out and grab him.
Yeah, for sure. I think Benny Snell, if he's still there, it's still questionable. Or no, they announced James Conner's out.
I'm not sure yet.
I think it's leading towards that. So I think Benny Snell, if he's there, he's a good pickup again. He's kind of like seems to be a little bit touchdown dependent, but I think he's a good RB2 flex guy.
Yeah, I mean 83% available for Benny Snell.
Pretty good.
This week they're playing at Arizona, so I mean you're not really worried about that defense. Just some numbers on Snell here, but in the 3 games with no James Conner, he's had 17 carries, 21 carries, and 16 carries. So he's getting the lion's share of the work in a sense over there.
Right.
And I was actually looking at the snap percentage because you like seeing that 16 carries plus some goal line carries. He fell into the end zone this last week. You like seeing that, but he actually only played like 35% of the snaps. I think he had 17 total touches, and he was only on the field for like 23 snaps. So that means that when he was on the field, he was getting the ball. So you really like seeing that. But in a game where I would like to think that they're going to be winning against the Cardinals, good defense.
Just hand the ball
Just
off.
kind of run the ball a lot more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know Hodge is still the quarterback, so maybe you don't want him to throw the ball as many times as you'd like. So
even though he's a third string, he really is better than Mason Rudolph. So I feel like they do feel more comfortable with him throwing the ball. But I think you're right. The game script will end up being turn it into more of a running game.
Yeah, I do like Benny Snell here, and I mean, like I said, if I was telling you off air, I mean, if I told you, hey, the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers is on the waiver wire, you'd go grab him, right?
Right.
So it's like, hey, you should probably go grab him. Just until James Conner comes back. Obviously dealing with the AC joint injury. I know I've said it multiple times on previous episodes, but I've had the injury, and it's pretty painful. So for him missing this many weeks, I can't imagine him coming back anytime soon.
Right.
Even if he goes back out there, he could aggravate it or re-injure it.
Well, and if you're the Steelers, you might sit him for this game that even if he is ready, I wouldn't push it and put him back in a game that they're most likely going to be winning anyways.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't want to re-injure that for no reasons. If I was going to say real quick, if Marlon Mack got dropped in any leagues, I don't think he did very, very much, but I mean, he's questionable this week. If he does come back, that'd be an amazing pickup for coming into the playoffs. Just double check the waiver wire, see if that pops up, Some
Could
people
be, for sure.
For sure, yeah. Some people might have dropped him. I mean, like, especially if they don't have an IR spot and they're, trying to pick up these streams this past couple of weeks, they needed running backs, whatever. He could be there. So definitely double check that if Marlon Mack's there.
Yeah, I like that.
What any other guys you want to talk about? Obviously,
but yeah, you got Darius Guice. He's 48% available. Did you see that run he had where he stiff-armed the guy into the ground?
Yeah.
Bro, he just destroyed that guy. Like, I mean,
getting stiff-armed is like it sucks. I feel bad.
I mean, you got to think that linebacker's like 220-plus pound linebacker, and he literally just took him with his hand and just threw him into the ground. Like, how strong? Yeah, his testosterone was high.
Testosterone, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, he had lots of testosterone.
I mean, one thing I kind of noticed in this matchup, I know I personally said I would have stayed away from AP and Geis this last week. It was a good matchup on paper, but I was like, it's a bad offense. But then just kind of looking back, in hindsight, I guess, just kind of how this offense wants to be ran. Like, they want to run the ball. They want to be a running team, play some defense. They don't really want to lean on Haskins as much. So in a good matchup, I guess it was there. But this week they're at Green Bay, another green-rated matchup. You can run on the Packers. Only bad thing is Geis has only seen, I think the last 2 weeks he's seen 12 touches back-to-back weeks. So he's not getting a ton of volume because AP's still there. But yeah, he's 48% available. And, some juicy matchups down the stretch. So I mean, I guess if you're in a pinch and you're hurting at running back, like you got nobody. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at going and grabbing guys and plugging them into my lineup right there, or at least holding them on my bench because you never know. Maybe someone gets hurt in week 14. Maybe someone gets hurt in week 15. It's always good to have that depth at the running back position. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how about Bo Scarborough?
What's his percentage? I'd rather go get like a Snell or a Geis over or
yeah, but
Scarborough.
I'm just thinking like maybe if he's not there or one of those guys isn't there.
Yeah, it just makes me nervous because I know that they're gonna be playing that David Blau or whatever his name is from.
Yeah, and he's like it's like everybody watches Lamar Jackson and then they just try and copy it. It seems like.
But I just don't know how confident I feel in this Lions offense. I mean, I know they're playing at Minnesota this week. Minnesota coming off a tough loss last night against the Seahawks. So I'd be worried for Scarborough. Even with the amount of volume he's getting, I'd be worried in a tough matchup against a Vikings defense that is normally tough against the run. I'd be worried for them.
Right.
For Scarborough in this matchup.
Yeah, I just was curious what you thought. I think I'm kind of the same way. That's not a guy I'm looking at getting. He's 46% owned.
What about the Clownslers guy, Darwin Thompson? He's 95% available.
I mean, the Clownslayer called it. He said draft Darwin Thompson, and it took you 13 weeks, but he's here. Yeah, I mean, if Darrell Williams isn't playing this week, then yeah, I think he's not a bad flex play. Darwin
it's
Thompson.
just tough because you still got Damian Williams dealing with the rib injuries. Like he could come back. I know Darrell Thompson left the game due to an injury. I mean, you still have McCoy
Darrell
there.
Williams.
Darrell Williams. What was it?
Darrell Thompson.
Oh, Darrell Thompson. I mean, Darrell Williams. Yeah, he left the game with the injury as well. But you still have McCoy there. I mean, Darwin Thompson. I was actually watching the game with Anthony, and he's not a very big guy.
He's small.
He's a little guy.
Yeah,
so
he's like a J.D. McKissick or like a.
Yeah.
He's pretty. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how confident I would feel with him. Just depending, I mean, maybe on the grab him and stash him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if Damian Williams comes back or Darrell Williams comes back, I think Darwin Thompson goes back to that fourth running back in the order. So, and obviously we've seen this kind of run into like a full-blown committee. It doesn't matter what running backs are out there. It's always two running backs that are getting used.
Yeah.
Back and forth. So.
Yeah, it's like it's like the Steelers running game and the Chiefs running game is very similar.
Yeah.
Don't you think? They both are kind of fantasy viable, whoever those guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a mess. You have to guess who's going to be the guys that week, but yeah. Anybody else you want to talk about, running backs?
Just Jamal Williams. He's 40% available. I know it's kind of a random name to bring up, but just I was looking at something. Aaron Jones, his last couple games, they've been pretty bad actually. He hasn't really performed, but Jamal Williams has been pretty consistent across the board. 10 or more PPR points in 8 of his last 11 games so far, and he's had 4 more receptions in 5 of his last 7 games. So he's kind of like the receiving back out of the two there, but. I think he's just kind of like a low-key, underrated player that people are sleeping on, who seems to keep getting it done. So, I mean, they're at home against the Redskins, so it's not a terrible matchup for him either. Yeah, I'm not mad at Jamal Williams. Depth play, like I said, you go grab these guys, throw them on your bench.
I've seen a couple of people sending me stuff that's about whether or not to play Jamal Williams this week. But, yeah, I think that's not a bet in this matchup. Yeah, I could see them running the ball.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the game. I think that's all we got on running backs. If you want to move on, what do you want to do? Wide receivers?
Wide receivers. Talk about my boy, Devontae Parker. He's 35% available. He needs to be 100% owned because he is a locked and loaded wide receiver too. With our
for some reason, I thought you were going to say he's 35% available. He needs to be 100% available.
No, he needs to be owned. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just know it because I'm a Dolphins fan and I'm paying a little bit of attention here, but 4 straight games with 10 or more targets. Like I just said when we talked about Fitz, we can't run the ball. Our defense is bad, so we're passing a ton each and every game. And Devontae Parker's a guy getting 10-plus targets, 4 straight games, 9 straight games with 11 or more PPR points. So it's like you throw him in there for nine straight weeks. For over 2 months, you've been getting 11 or more PPR points. every single game from Devontae Parker. At the Jets, we should be trailing in this game week 14. But then week 15 at the Giants, you're not scared about that. Their corners are the worst in the league. And then week 16 home against the Bengals, you're not mad at that as well. Like I said, he's getting the volume. We're throwing a ton. And if you saw any of these highlights for Devontae Parker, it's just like Fitz just throws him the ball, and he doesn't even look open. But he just throws him the ball. And Devontae Parker, and this is why he got drafted in the first round out of Louisville a couple years ago. It's because he's that guy where you literally just throw him the ball and he mosses you. He out jumps you. He high points the ball and he comes down with these catches. He just out jumps everyone and out muscles everyone for the ball. So it's nice to see him finally healthy and on the field. But I mean, I've picked him up in a couple leagues, and I think I saw a stat that since week 5, or since they came out of their bye, I think it's week 5. It could be week 6. I could be wrong here. But since he's come out of the bye, he's actually like the 6th best wide receiver in fantasy football. So, yeah, go get that guy.
Dude,
he's out there.
When I seen him doing so well this past week, all I was thinking about was you and Anthony being like, yeah, like just so hyped.
Dude, that first touchdown he had, it was 4th and 4. And literally, he just threw him up a ball like down the sideline. It was one-on-one, and he just out-jumped the guy and then tiptoed down the sideline.
When it comes down to it, he just outplayed him. And that's what it came down to. No, yeah, it's nice to see guys that are talented be able to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you just throw him in there, you know what you're going to get each and every week. I can't imagine a scenario where he doesn't continue to put up. If he's getting 10+ targets every single game, I can't imagine a scenario where he doesn't continue the trend of scoring 11 or more PPR points every single week. So, yeah, he'd be a guy I just set it and forget it. If I picked him up, throwing him in there, I mean, maybe you're already stacked across the board. Maybe throw him in there as your wide receiver 3 or your flex guy. You're not going to be mad at it.
Wide receiver 3, let's do it. I like it. I'm going to talk about somebody that I really love. I'm almost a Bills fan. My dude Cole Beasley.
The Beasles.
The Beasles. I'm not sure exactly what his percentage owned is. I know it's not.
He's 76% available.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, let me just pull up. This is full point PPR, but let me just pull up his game log really quick. These past, okay, I guess it's not that crazy, but he got 26 points this past week, and the week before 19 points, and then it's like 7, 11, but everything's like 10 and above pretty much.
Yeah, he's
besides a couple weeks.
He gets you like 10 to 12 every week, I feel like.
In full point PPR. But yeah, it just kind of is the same thing like you're saying. Is just, it kind of baffles me when you talk about Devontae Parker being available and just, who else? John Brown.
Yeah.
It's like, why this guy is just getting it done as like a wide receiver 3.
It's like these guys are playing better than like an Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, they're getting
like
more points.
Or like a Juju. They're outperforming these guys. I know Juju's been hurt, but even then, it's like they're outperforming these guys who win in the first couple rounds. So it's crazy.
Yeah, just don't get like. I know it doesn't sound that juicy having Cole Beasley, but him and John Brown are just the guys that Josh Allen's throwing to in Buffalo. So. Yeah. Pick him up, dude.
I mean, he's a wide receiver 24 in PPR league. So if you're in a 12-man league, he's a wide receiver 2. So there's a wide receiver 2 that's 76% available.
That's crazy.
On the waiver wire over here. So
I like it.
Yeah. What about your boy Homer pick, James Washington, 78% available?
I like it.
Of course you do.
Yeah, especially this week's decent matchup.
They're against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have. They're not good.
Yeah, they're just not. The Cardinals' future looks a little bit better, but they're just. I think it's definitely a mismatch. I think James Washington's a good pickup this week. I feel comfortable throwing him in there. It's we were hoping that Mason Rudolph James Washington connection would happen, but it seems like it's Devlin Hodges just can connect better with these receivers.
Yeah. I mean, just some numbers on James Washington. He's had 90 or more receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He's also had a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games, too. So, I mean, yeah, he's getting it done. I mean, it's kind of better, late than never. I know it's towards the end of the year, but, I mean, with no Juju out there, he's kind of turned into the guy or the deep threat, at least, for sure.
Yeah. People were like, oh, he got so lucky on that touchdown. But, dude, I mean, he was in position. He did make a play with the ball. It's not like it just landed in his chest.
He was getting passed. He's getting dragged down. He's getting tackled.
I don't know. I think it was like, he got lucky.
A great play.
It's like,
what? shows how talented he is, when given the opportunity to make a
sure.
play. So, yeah, I like him. This was just kind of for me. Robbie Anderson, 53% available just because he's home against Miami. I know that, we kind of touched on Sam Darnold when we touched the quarterbacks that, it's a good matchup at home against the Dolphins. Pass defense is just terrible. Their secondary is terrible. And I think Robbie Anderson coming off a 100-yard-plus game this last week, even another game 2 weeks ago, I think he had like 85-plus passing yards or 85 receiving yards 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I like Robbie Anderson in this one. I could definitely see him catching a deep pass against the Dolphins defense that just struggles in general overall. So, 53% available, and I know I touch on it all the time. I'd rather grab this guy and throw him on my bench and let him blow up on my bench instead of my opponent goes out and picks him up, and now I lose because Robbie Anderson throws up a 30-burger.
Right.
So, yeah, Robbie Anderson, 53% available.
Do it, Robbie Anderson. How about Anthony Miller? I had a big week this past week. I know it was last Thursday. It's hard to remember.
Over 100 yards, right?
Yeah. 9+ targets in the last 3 games. Playing from the slot. I feel weird about it, but it's.
I think it just comes down to do you trust Trubisky?
Yeah. And it's that's when I go.
I'm not sure in the playoffs if I'm trusting Trubisky.
Right.
Outside of Allen Robinson, I'm not sure if I'm trusting Trubisky. I'm not sure if I'm trusting anybody on the Bears outside of Allen Robinson in the playoffs. That's including David Montgomery and Trubisky himself.
So yeah, I think the Trubisky thing is it's what's kind of sketching me out. Let's move on over to what do you think about Russell Gage? Are you trusting Russell Gage?
That's another one. It's tough right there. It's just
10 targets and 9 targets the past 2 weeks.
I mean, last game, no Julio Jones, so that kind of skews the stats a little bit. I guess if Julio Jones is out, then he comes more attractive. But if Julio Jones is back, then Hooper could be coming back as well. So, I mean, if Hooper and Julio Jones come back, then yeah, I wouldn't be interested in Russell Gage.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
I'd actually rather go get a guy like Deebo Samuel. He's 46% available. That's a tough matchup at New Orleans this week, but 13 or more PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. Deebo Samuel from the Niners. And he's out there. So yeah, I'd rather go get a guy like him who's seems to be getting it done on a week in and week out basis lately. I'd rather go get him over Anthony Miller or Russell Gage.
Yeah, it's just like what Chicago receiver have you been able to play week in and week out?
I mean, it's Allen Robinson.
But like, what is Allen Robinson putting up recently?
It's been pretty good.
Really?
Been pretty solid, yeah.
Okay,
been
never
pretty
mind.
solid.
Don't listen to me.
Last guy for me personally, at least, you got D.D. Westbrook. He's 40% available. This week, they're home against the Chargers. We kind of touched on it. It's kind of a tougher matchup. He should see a lot of Desmond King, who's a pretty good corner. And so I'm not sure if I'm playing D.D. Westbrook this week, but weeks 15 and week 16 are both green-rated matchups, and you got the Minshew Mania coming alive. So, yeah, I wouldn't be mad at grabbing D.D. Westbrook, throw him on my bench, and then maybe weeks 15, 16, maybe playing the matchups, you throw him in there and dial him up.
So is Big Dick Nick now Little Dick Nick or what?
I think he's gone full flaccid.
Is he on the North Pole? Is he Old Saint Nick?
I think the extends ran out.
Yeah, I think he's got fucking whiskey dick for sure. Whiskey Dick Nick.
Whiskey Dick Nick. Any other receivers you like over here?
How do you feel about Sterling Shepard?
Oh yeah, 100%. If he's out there, I'd go grab him. I mean, I think he's had some monster target share.
He ended up in the end zone this past week.
Yeah.
If Tate's out again, I definitely like it.
Yeah, for sure. Who are they playing this week? They're playing. Where are they at?
Where are they? They're playing Monday night game against the Eagles.
Oh yeah, I love it. The Eagles' defense is
the pass defense is
pretty bad. So yeah, I'd definitely be dialing up all those pass catchers. Like, and then we'll do the matchups.
Even Darius Slayton.
He'd be a sneaky guy. I mean, I guess if they're at full strength, Evan Ingram, Tate and Sterling Shepard are there. He's kind of like that 4th option. But maybe having all those guys there could actually help Darius Slayton. He's not the main guy to focus on.
You've seen all these guys be able to put up fantasy numbers.
Yeah.
It just depends who it is.
Philly minus 8.5. Dial up the Giants plus 8.5 all day.
You like that?
And the over. You're
crazy. Let's talk tight ends.
talk tight ends.
Let's talk about that tight end you got over there. Ooh, who's your number one tight end, huh? Mike Gesicki?
I mean, Gesicki is available in 90% of the leagues. Just kind of some numbers here. Preston Williams, the other receiver for the Dolphins, he went out a couple weeks ago with a torn ACL. But that's since he's gone out. I mean, 5 straight games, Gesicki's had 6 to 7 targets, and he's kind of like a big body red zone guy as well. I mean, being a Dolphins fan, I know that we outside of Devontae Parker, we really don't have another like dominant pass catcher. It's kind of a lot of subpar or par players at best. So I'm not mad at grabbing Gesicki if you're in a tight end pinch and you need to throw someone in there. I mean, I even thought about grabbing him, and I have no tight end in one league. I thought about grabbing him and throwing him in, but I have Devontae Parker, and I just don't know how comfortable I feel playing 2 Dolphins.
Right.
But if I didn't have a Devontae Parker, I wouldn't be mad at grabbing a Gesicki and maybe throwing him in there if I'm struggling at the tight end position.
For sure. It's Gesicki. He's a guy.
Yeah. What about you? Who do you like over here?
There's a couple different guys. I like Jack Doyle. Okay, actually, you know what? The tight end I want to talk about real fast.
We know it.
It's a homer pick, all right? But Vance McDonald, listen, they're playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals are terrible against tight ends. You see guys like this past week, Tyler Higbee just lit it up against Arizona. He's not like their main tight end. Gerald Everett was out though, so he was their number one, whatever. Teams know that they can exploit this defense via tight end, and it seems like Arizona really hasn't done anything to change the fact of that. And so, I mean, I know Vance McDonald hasn't been doing that great. I think the most targets he's gotten was like 7 or 8, but I think in this matchup they're gonna adjust and come up with plays to get him more involved. I could see Vance McDonald stiff arming some nerds this week.
For sure.
In Arizona.
Yeah, I think I saw the numbers. If you took, I think on a points per game basis, Austin Hooper is still the number one tight end on a points per game basis. But if you were to take all the tight ends against the Cardinals and add up them on a points per game basis, and they would have 2 more points per game than Austin Hooper. So that would be the number one tight end in fantasy football. If you just played the tight end against the Cardinals every single week.
And I kicked myself because I almost played Tyler Higbee instead of Greg Olsen. I almost picked him up and threw him in there, but I didn't. And I'm pissed off I did not, and that makes me want to pick up Vance McDonald and throw him in.
Yeah, he's 40% available. I'm in a league where I have Evan Ingram, but he's been hurt, and then I have Greg Olsen as my backup, so he's been playing this whole time. But Vance McDonald's on the waiver wire, and I'm thinking, you know what, send it. I'm going for the. I'm in the championship. I'm in the playoffs.
This is it.
Greg Olsen hasn't really been doing anything crazy. Evan Ingram's been out for so long. I do like the matchup for Evan Ingram on Monday night, but do I wait till Monday night until see if he plays or not? But if I can get Vance Dance, I put in a claim for him already. I'm dialing him up. I'm sending it, no flub, against the Cardinals, like you said, that they're just terrible against the tight end. And I'm just going to go with the trend that these tight ends keep dominating against the Cardinals. And, especially if there's no Juju there, I definitely like Vance Dance this week.
Yeah, I love it. Now, the other 2 teams that play the Cardinals are the Browns, so maybe David Njoku, and then they play the Seahawks in the championship. So if Jacob Hollister's there, I would definitely
maybe grab him and stash him.
Picking him up.
You could probably grab Hollister and play him.
You could play him too, but like I'm saying that that definitely against Arizona, you definitely want to see that.
Yeah,
for sure. So yeah. Go against Arizona. Jack Doyle against Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron's on IR. I think especially if T.Y. Hilton's out too, that just ups Jack Doyle's worth in my book.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it. They played Tampa Bay this week.
I mean, I love Jack Doyle. 55% available. Like I said, no Ebron. He's on the IR. I mean, I think as long as especially if T.Y.'s out again, you're definitely dialing up Doyle. I think he's pretty much locked in as a top 10 tight end going forward. Scored a touchdown this last week. So he kind of takes over that red zone threat that, Ebron and him had. He kind of just like they Super Saiyan fused into one player. We kind of saw Ebron last year with no Jack Doyle, how well he did with, being the sole and only tight end over there. So now it's Doyle's turn to be the only tight end over there. So I think he puts up, a similar production that Ebron did, last year as being the only tight end in that offense.
I like Kyle Rudolph kind of.
Yeah, me too.
I think especially just because they keep getting injuries with their wide receivers.
Yeah.
What's the status on Stephon Diggs?
Diggs is okay, but Thielen's still battling a hamstring injury.
Right.
And we kind of touched on this a couple weeks ago. Like these hamstring injuries, they can linger for weeks and weeks and weeks. And we kind of noticed the trend that first 6 weeks or whatever it was, Rudolph was non-existent. But since Thielen's been out, he's had 11 or more PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. And he's had 6 touchdowns in his last 6 games as well. So kind of like that red zone threat. I guess you could say all those Thielen touchdowns in a sense are going to Rudolph. And they're kind of incorporating him more in the red zone. He's getting all these like short yardage touchdowns. He's a big guy, 6'6". I don't know if you saw the touchdown catch he had last night. But
I didn't.
It's a good, like Kirk Cousins threw the ball. I thought he was throwing the ball out of the end zone, just like throw it away, and out of nowhere, Rudolph just stuck his hand up and just like palmed it like one hand, like a fucking
Groot.
Yeah, like a Groot. Yeah, dude, it was pretty impressive catch. But
6 foot Groot.
Good matchup here for Rudolph too. I mean, down the stretch, 55% available. Like I said, as long as Thielen's out, I'm feel comfortable throwing Rudolph in my lineup each and every week.
I like it. Ryan Griffin.
I like Ryan Griffin again. It's the whole Miami defense thing, He's 85% available. I think this could be a big Sam Darnold game, here. I think, I said last week it wasn't a good game, but I think this game Sam Darnold has a bounce back game at home against Miami. They probably want to get a revenge game for Adam Gase as well. Gase lost in Miami earlier in the year, so I think that the Jets come out. And I kind of like the Jets. What is the line on that one? Jets minus 5.5. I'm dialing up the Jets minus 5.5 on that one.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
After they come off that loss to the Bengals.
For sure, yeah.
Thank God I didn't pick the fucking Jets. Anybody else you want to talk about? Jason Witten?
I don't know.
I think that's more of like a deep ad, but I think there's a lot of tight ends. For usually tight ends landscape is really hard to grab guys, and I just feel like this week there's actually quite a few.
For sure, yeah.
That you're able to pick up. I would say Tyler Higbee. I know we talked about him being doing well against the Cardinals this past week, but they played the Seahawks. Yep, they play the Seahawks, and the Seahawks is the 3rd worst against tight ends. I know, so that you could almost ride that wave too if you picked him up and played him this past week. Throw him again. I'm not mad at it. Yeah, I'm not mad at it. If you don't grab any of these other guys, I like it.
For sure.
Shout. That's if Gerald Everett's out.
Yeah.
It's still questionable, but yeah. Let's talk about defenses, baby. Who's your number 1 defense?
Well, I kind of picked them up last week because I saw the matchup, and I knew I was going to make the playoffs already, so I was kind of thinking one week ahead. Sometimes I feel like you got to do that with these defenses, from the waiver wire. So
really do.
I went out and I grabbed the Packers. They're at home. They're going to be against the Redskins. I know the Redskins came out and they put up a pretty good game against the Panthers, and the Panthers were like the number 1 rated, or like at least a top 3 rated defense this last week going forward. But I think playing in Lambeau, it's going to be cold. It could be snowing. Who knows? Yeah, I like the Packers at home this week against the Redskins. They're 76% available.
I like that. I like the Browns against Cincinnati. Listen, Cincinnati, I know they just got their first win this past week, but Browns is a pretty decent defense even without Myles Garrett. Bengals are just bad, dude. They're just not there. I can see them just turning the ball over. Let's see if it's in Cincinnati. No, it's in Cleveland. Even better. So that's probably one of my top ones too.
Yeah.
Just look at these guys playing against teams that are just not looking so good.
Bengals offensive line is pretty bad, so
yeah. Let's see. You playing Jets defense against the Dolphins?
I do like the Jets defense. They're 65% available.
Yeah. How about that's Vikings versus the Lions?
Yep, like them too. They're 35% available.
Even though David Blau did look not that bad, but it's still I feel like what they play Chicago.
I think I was reading something that the Bears defense was like, oh, we're playing against Blau. Like they didn't give him enough credit. They were like, whatever, it's third string quarterback. Yeah, and then it came out, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh fuck, like we got to get like serious, because we're losing,
Throw Khalil out there.
I think the Vikings, especially coming off a tough loss, they're in that playoff hunt for that 6th seed. So they got to get right. They got to get right. You know, they're still in the division hunt as well. So yeah, I think at home the Minnesota Vikings are going to just shellac the Lions, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah, those are a couple different ones. How do you feel? Texans versus Broncos?
Probably staying away from that.
Yeah. Even though it's Drew Lock.
Yeah, probably staying away from that. I think the Jets would probably be the most available that you could go out and probably grab 65% available at home against the Dolphins.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of these like week 16. Yeah. I think that's all I got. All I got. It's all we got. All we got. Do it. Listen, dude.
It was not a flub.
It was not a flub. You fucking weirdos. This has been the Average Bros Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for listening. This is episode 53. Waiver Wire, Week 14, playoffs. Week 1 of playoffs. We're here for you. Me and Tyler. We started a GoFundMe for Anthony for his condition between his legs. So if you would like to donate to that, go to www.anthonyisrunningrampant.gofundme.com. And anything, even $1, man, like it really helps him out. So we would really appreciate it if you could help him out with that, because his condition it's fine right now, but if it ran more rampant, then it could get worse. So like, and it just could get ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So prayers for AMAC. And give us a subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Ask us some questions. I know playoffs is here. It's very important to win this week. It's win or go home. Am I right?
You're not wrong.
Thanks again for listening. Us little boys are out.